In 2014, a TV show that spent 9 years building one of the most ambitious long-form romantic narratives in sitcom history took its final bow, and in the space of about 20 minutes it destroyed almost everything that it had built. The How I Met Your Mother finale is one of the most controversial endings in television history. Not because it was shocking, not because it was badly made, but because it was wrong. Just wrong, that's it. Specifically, and demonstrably wrong, in ways that the show itself had spent years arguing against, and today we're going to try fixing it. First, I'll recap the show for anyone who needs it, walk you through exactly what we got in that finale and why it landed so poorly, and then, and this is the part I am most excited about, I'm going to try rewriting it, giving you my version of what we should have got. This is what I think the show was actually building towards if the writers had actually let themselves trust their own story. Welcome to Popcorn Programming, and let's get into my How I Met Your Mother rewrites. Pop pop! For anyone who hasn't seen it, first of all, just go and watch it. Most of it is genuinely brilliant. I'd say the first, and I'd say all of it actually is very good. All 9 seasons have good moments in them. 9's the weakest by quite some way, but they're all worth watching. But I'll recap everything you need to know. So, we are in the year 2030, we're actually almost there, well, 2026 at the moment, but in the show we're in 2030, and a man named Ted Mosby is telling his 2 teenage children the story of how he met their mother. The whole show is narrated from this future perspective, with future Ted voiced by Bob Saget, you know, Danny Tanner from Full House, looking back on his life in his 30s with a mixture of nostalgia, warmth and the occasional exasperation. Ted is played by Josh Radnor, and he's a hopeless romantic. He's an architect living in New York City, perpetually searching for the one, constantly falling in love way too fast and way too hard, and getting his heart broken pretty much every single time. Around him is a group of friends. You've got Marshall and Lily, who are played by Jason Segel and Alison Hannigan respectively, who are the great love story of the show. College sweethearts who get married in season 2 and then spend the rest of the series building a life together. You've got Barney Stinson, played by Neil Patrick Harris, who is a womanizing, suit-wearing, catchphrase-delivering force of nature and one of the funniest sitcom characters of all time. And then, to round out the pack, you've got Robin Scherbatsky, played by Cubby Smulders, who is a Canadian news journalist who is fiercely independent, emotionally guarded and career-obsessed. The genius of the show's structure is that you're always watching it through the lens of the future. Future Ted is telling this story for a reason. Every relationship, every failed romance, every heartbreak is a chapter in a story leading somewhere specific. The show asks you to trust it, to believe that all of this is leading somewhere meaningful, and for 8.5 seasons it earns that trust. The show spent 9 years teasing the identity of the mother. You had the yellow umbrella, you had the bass guitar, you had the econ class at Columbia, you had clues scattered across the seasons, a slow and deliberate trail of breadcrumbs. And when Tracy McConnell, the mother, who is played by Kristen Milotti, finally appears properly in season 9, the response from the audiences was immediate and overwhelming. People loved her. Milotti brought some warmth, she brought wit, emotional depth and instant chemistry with Josh Radnor that felt completely natural. Episodes where Ted and Tracy finally interact are some of the most purely joyful the show ever produced. The episode How Your Mother Met Me, told entirely from Tracy's perspective, is a masterpiece of the show's format, and many fans consider it the single best episode of the entire run. Tracy is funny, she's romantic, she's a little eccentric, but she is deeply kind. She plays the bass guitar, she makes the best chocolate chip cookies anyone has ever eaten apparently. I haven't had one, but apparently they're very good. She loves the same obscure things that Ted loves, and she is by every measure the show had established his perfect person, which makes what we got in the finale so extraordinarily painful. The finale, that is titled Last Forever, covers a huge span of time and it starts okay. You got Barney and Robin getting divorced within the first 15 minutes, undoing an entire season of build-up to their wedding in about 3 scenes. Barney reverts to his old womanizing ways before he has a daughter with a woman we never actually get to meet, but having that daughter reforms him. Robin ends up drifting away from the group, being consumed by her career, which does feel fitting for her character, and then the show tells us that Tracy the mother, the woman 9 seasons of television has been building towards, is ill, and then it tells us she is dead. Future Ted, it turns out, has been telling his kids this story, not to explain where they came from, but as a way of asking their permission to pursue Robin again. Tracy died 6 years before the moment he is narrating from. His kids in the final scene point out that the story is way more about Robin than about their mum. They tell him to go after her, and he runs to her apartment, holds up the iconic blue French horn, and that's the end of the show, and the audience, in large part, was devastated. Here's the thing that makes this so particularly painful. The writers, Carter Bays and Craig Thomas, actually filmed the children's reactions all the way back in 2006, before they knew fully how the show would develop, before Kristen Milotti was cast, before anyone knew how much the audiences would love Tracy. They locked in their ending 8 years before it got delivered, and what happened in between is that the show evolved into something far richer than they'd originally planned for. The Tracy that they imagined in 2006 was probably a bit more of a MacGuffin, more of a destination point, and the answer to the question, rather than the fully realised character that the audiences would fall completely in love with within the final season. And by 2014, the problem with the original plan was glaring. The show had spent years, literal years, making the case that Ted needed to let go of Robin, that Robin was wrong for him, that their relationship was destructive and circular, and that Ted's obsession with her was a form of self-sabotage. The episode The End of the Isle, literally the episode before the finale, has Barney tell Ted to let her go. And Ted does. It's framed as a moment of growth and of closure. And then the finale immediately reverses it. You got Barney and Robin's divorce being handled, well, with shocking carelessness. For two characters' relationship had been built up so well across multiple seasons. Robin, one of the show's most interesting characters, is reduced in the finale to nothing more than a prize to be claimed. Tracy, the supposed point of the whole 9 seasons, is killed off screen and her death is skipped over in a montage so the show could just get to the real ending it wanted to do. The finale doesn't just have a bad ending, it's an ending that actively argues against everything the show had spent 9 years telling us mattered. So, here's my version, and here's the thing, actually, and this is the part where you might expect me to do something a bit more complicated, a totally different story, a radical reimagining, but I actually think the fix is far simpler and more elegant than that, because the show, in its penultimate moments, was already telling you the right story. It just needed to stop about 4 minutes or so earlier. Here's how I would end How I Met Your Mother. We keep everything up to the moment where Ted sees Tracy at the Barhampton train station in the rain. He approaches her, she's holding the yellow umbrella, they talk, discovering in that warm, slightly magical way the show does so beautifully all the moments they almost met. The econ class, the wedding band, the St. Patrick's Day party, all of those near misses, and the conversation that should have been the emotional climax of 9 years of television. Ted Mosby, after all of this time, after all these wrong turns and heartbreaks and almost theirs, finally meeting the right person, and it plays out fully without rush. We give that scene room to breathe because it deserves it. We've been building to it for 9 years. And then here is the key change we make to future Ted. The one narrating, he doesn't explain that she died as the kids would already know that. He doesn't ask his kids to permission to pursue anyone else. He simply says, and that, kids, is how I met your mother. The rest, as they say, is history. And then, if you want, you can cut to an image of Ted in the present, not a flash forward of years, just him at home, happy with the memories he got with his wife. Maybe he's at home, maybe the house Ted always described wanting, nothing too elaborate, just Ted, finally exactly having what he wanted. He wanted the wife, he wanted the family, and he wanted a house, and he got all three, and that is where I would roll the credits. I know there's some of you may be thinking, is that it? That seems a bit too simple. Is that too neat? Doesn't the show need something far more complex than he met her and they lived happily ever after? Here's my argument. The entire point of the show's structure of future Ted looking back, telling the kids the stories of all these different stories, shaping Ted into the person he absolutely needed to be able to get the right woman he wanted to be the mother of his children. Okay, it's an act of love and gratitude, all that. He's not telling them the story to process grief. He's telling them so they understand where they came from, so they understand that their parents' love wasn't an accident. It was the result of 1,000 choices and near misses and heartbreaks, all of which were necessary. Every wrong relationship Ted had was a chapter in the story of how he became the Percy Tracy needed him to be. And that's a beautiful idea. And the ending I'm proposing, I feel, honours that completely. By ending on That's How I Met Your Mother, and Ted looking happy as he's saying it, it means the journey was worth it. All of it. Every painful moment future Ted has narrated over 9 years was leading here. Not to loss, not to a second chance with an ex, to this, to her. You also preserve everything that made Tracy's arrival so special. And crucially, you don't have to break up Barney and Robin either. You don't have to undo an entire season, or if we're really honest, the last 3 seasons of storytelling. You don't have to turn Robin into a destination rather than a person. The finale in his actual form does all those things in service of an ending it had planned in 2006, and it should have had the courage to abandon it. My ending doesn't require any of that collateral damage. How I Met Your Mother is, for most of its run, a genuinely great piece of television. It's funny, it's emotionally intelligent, it's structurally ambitious in ways that most sitcoms never really attempt. The central cast is excellent, the long-term storytelling, the way clues and callbacks are planted across the seasons, the genuinely emotional weight it builds towards. All of that is real and it's very impressive. The tragedy of the finale is not just that it's a bad ending, it's that the right ending was already there. It was already written into the fabric of the show. Ted meets Tracy at the train station when everything has been building towards it. You just had to trust it, and sadly the writers didn't. And so, one of the most ambitious romantic comedies in television history is remembered, at least partly, for getting its own point wrong. My version isn't a radical rewrite, it's just a reimagining. Just stop here, right here at this point. This is the moment. Let it be the moment. And sometimes the best rewrite isn't reinventing the wheel, it's simply knowing when to put the pen down. And that is all for this rewrite. So what do you think? What do you make of the How I Met Your Mother ending we actually got in real life and my rewritten version? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you've enjoyed this video, then be sure to give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button if you are new around here. That is all for now, so I'd like to thank you for watching and we'll see you later. Pop pop!